it should be good. So
I didn't hear the beep. We're recording? We're live?
listen. I'm starting off like this, then we'll see. Two kind of problems that we're discussing. I'm going to start with your problem because it's more in the order of time. It comes first. First problem is like this. That there is a Torah, otherwise known as wisdom. Beis, Torah. There's such a thing as Torah, or he calls it ethics. Everyone has different things for the same thing. And this Torah, it's a good thing. Assuming it is, right? Or easier way of talking about this is sometimes you say there's a Rebbe, like you call it a tzaddik, that he knows something. Another way of saying there is a Torah, right? There is a Torah, means there's someone somewhere that knows something, either a live person or a dead person or a malach, someone or something, right? There isn't such a thing as knowledge that nobody knows. You know that? Okay, that's another wish. In any case, and we want to learn it. Stimmt? Or you could speak from the perspective of, like, an easiest way to talk about it, from the perspective of this Rebbe or tzaddik that knows something, or chocham, that knows something and he wants to teach it, right? Now the yisod is that he knows something that other people don't know. Yisod gudel. Just do a Torah, which means, or there is knowledge, or there is wisdom, or all these not different shams nedufim, which we don't know, or other people don't know. The people that are to learn it, the Talmidim, the future Talmidim, right? They don't know it. Right? And this is another important thing, right? You should, all the definitions that I'm giving you are each one al Kiddush, right? This is important. The first one, and explain. The second one, it's important that we don't know it. In other words, because we're very confused about this most of the time, right? Most of us are extremely confused about this most of the time. We go to teachers, or we learn Surim of Torah, or of knowledge, of all kinds of knowledges, and we expect not to be taught anything new, not to be taught anything that we don't know. And we consider it a chutzpah. This is yish, this is sharf, it's breaking people. The Rebbe is not allowed to break anyone. So therefore, what the people that don't want the Rebbe to break on are asking for, or in this way, is for the Rebbe not to teach them anything, right? In other words, they don't really believe that there's something that there is knowledge and that they don't know it. That's the two basic criteria for basic yisodis of what we're always doing. There is a knowledge, there is a Torah, and we don't know it. Or maybe someone else doesn't know it. There's, right? And this is both of these things that are each gross chadisha, and this leads to a third point, which is the problem, right? So if I'm a teacher that only basically tells people things that they already know, which is what most teachers end up doing, right? Because if you go to, should I say names?
Yeah, and that makes it more exciting.
If you go to Chvaisnish, no? Or the popular teachers.
Footnote.
Teacher for who? If you listen to the Mailach, they'll never tell you anything that you don't know. You can't even disagree with anything because it's all the things that you're supposed to know. You don't really know, but you believe, whatever. So belief is a way of pretending that you know something that you don't know. That's a definition for the word amena. Not the true.
Not the true amena.
Yeah, the thing that people call belief. Right? It's lying to say that you know something when you don't. And not knowing is fine. I don't know. That's to pretend. But anyways, so that's the problem, right? And most teachers just don't do this. This is very hard, right? So, because there is a knowledge, there is a truth, a Torah. I like the word Torah because it's a Jewish traditional word. And you don't know it, so what you want to do is learn it. Right? Or teach it, if you're on the side of the knower, supposedly. Problem is that this is very hard. So that's for being hard emotionally, psychologically, people's like entire self and gav, all kind of things is built on the idea that they know something, or they believe something, which is even worse. Now until you don't know it. You're coming here to learn it, right? So business is nicht gewiss. That's a psychological problem or like a Midas problem, right? That's why many teachers like to talk about bittul, anova, right? Being a mekabel. And when I was in yeshiva, I had a rule that any Magachi that talks about bittul means that it can't come in. Why? Bittul, I mean, how they go to the litvax? Achna. Achna to the Rebbe.
That's why.
Why? Because if he would know something that I don't know, he could just say it and I'll realize that is the zach. If he has to talk to me about achna, I just have achna. Why didn't he show it to me instead of talking to me about it, right? Or maybe just a bad teacher. I'm not saying he doesn't know anything. Maybe just a very bad communicator. But this is the reason why many teachers end up talking about this a lot. And what's last time?
Which memories were you remembering?
There's a certain guy that I'm talking about that you don't know. But more broadly, more generally, like Shmuley says, we should talk more generally. More generally, it's true. Right? It's obviously true that you have to have some kind of midah that allows you to listen to someone else. By the way, not only a teacher. It's probably a bad idea to only listen to teachers. Right? It's a bad idea to... if this midah is really not called lechna, it's called openness. Very important to realize. Right? Right, and we have this problem. Let's talk about this. I'm trying to keep track. Right, we have this problem. Now, part of the solution, or the first solution, is to have some kind of midah called being a mekabel, called being able to listen. And if you read any Chassidish Spurim or anyone that's trying to be a teacher in any kind of context, besides for the context in which it's easy to show that you know something that the other person doesn't know. Right? Like
Chemistry.
Yeah. For some reason the chemistry teachers never talk about bittul, because everyone already has bittul to them, and because they don't really know anything that you don't know. They don't teach you new ways of thinking for the most part. They only teach you more facts, which don't change anything in the person. Right? They don't change your ways of thinking. They just give you more facts. And people are pretty, for the most people, not yeshiva buchrim, but most people that are not yeshiva buchrim don't have a problem with believing that other people have no facts that they do. Yeshiva buchrim, because they kind of think they're really trying to learn are not facts, so they get confused with this. Anyways. Understand? But those kind of teachers don't have this problem. But any teacher that is actually trying to teach something, which is going to have to mean if there's someone that knows something and the other person doesn't know, which a person that doesn't know is a different kind of person, right? It means that your whole mahalach of thinking and everything is different. It doesn't have the so-called software to process this kind of things. You have to first install the software. So we end up talking a lot about bittul, not about anova, about menes chacham, all kind of language that all end up being the same thing. And this is only a very limited good solution. Anyways, nobody wants to do it here, so I shouldn't talk about it. We talk about it. Yeah? The solution? What do you think?
Solution to which problem?
To the problem of not being able to learn anything new. Basic problem. If you go to a litvak, if a Chassidish mashpia comes to Litvish yeshiva, okay, I've seen this play out hundreds of times on both sides of the story. And not only Chassidish, but anyone that has anything to say comes to Litvish yeshiva, and he starts to say a drusha, and all the chachomim was kendlich lernen, and they know how to argue. And they start saying, well, you said this like this, but I have a raya from Rashi, or I have a svara that it doesn't add up, all kinds of things like that. And now, could be that these people are right. I'm not saying who is right and who is wrong. Right? But one thing that doesn't happen, that this guy has an idea that you've never heard of in your life. There's a way of thinking, and like if you're learning Hasidic Sefer and you come to Yeshiva, these people never heard of this way of thinking. Could be it's stupidity, could be it's nonsense. I'm not even getting into that discussion. But if you're curious, you should have some ability to, okay, this person has a different story to tell than the one I've heard. Right? But instead, what do? You just start arguing, and almost nobody ever understands what he's trying to say from arguing with him. Did you notice? Very interesting. Because arguing assumes that I already have all the tools to understand what you're saying. I basically understand what you're saying. Shad is just if what you say is shit Medrash. The math adds up or it doesn't add up. But this person he actually has a thought to get to you. That you didn't have that thought. You never had it in your life. When
you say argue, you mean disagree?
I mean the act of arguing.
The act of telling you that I'm disagreeing
Not disagree.
with you?
No, I don't mean to disagree. Because disagree is like Groisa Madraig. I don't have the level to disagree. Disagree means you told me that Tanya said, gosh, I'm going to give you examples and doesn't know all the examples yet, so you have to stop. You say that, what did the Chassidish Mashpiyim teach that the other doesn't know? You say that Yetzer Hara is but I learned in my Rebbe says something different than you. So no problem. I don't know. I don't know who is right. You want to disagree in the sense of saying that's one discussion. But you didn't even understand what this person is saying. You can't think from his perspective at all. You never have that thought. Right? And for the most part, by the way, if you look around, for the most part, the people that are converted to certain systems of thought, like, again, this is something that we're familiar with. Like if some people become Hasidim, or some people become Rambamists, or some people become Hasidim. For the most part, it's not because they've contrasted two systems of thought and decided that this one is correct. That almost never happens because it requires a crazy amount of effort to even understand one system and then another one and to compare them. What happens generally is that some people, if he went to a literature yeshiva, and the yeshivas have a certain framework in which they live, a certain theology, a certain thing, and it never made sense to him, never understood it, for the most part, never understood it. Maybe it's impossible to understand because it doesn't make sense, but he never understood it. And then someone else showed him a different way of thinking or a different way of living, meaning a different way of relating to the world, intellectually or emotionally. And he understood that one. So he said, this is obviously the truth. But it's not obviously the truth. It's just the first thing you ever understood.
That resonated.
Understood. Resonated is a new age word. Understood. What's wrong with the word understood? I don't know what resonated means. Resonance is when you scream and you have an echo.
Resonated means that when you like it, when it calls to you.
Yeah.
Right, but I like the word understood. Okay, I'm not going to get into a discussion about it. Not resonated. Understood. You didn't understand the previous thing. Understand just means make sense, right? Understand means this allows me to make sense of things. Right? That's what understanding is. Right? What you call resonated is really just understanding. It's not something distinct. And let's not get stuck on this. I'm saying that you didn't understand. Understand just means, we were born in the world, we get all kinds of data, this guy says this guy says that, I have this feeling, that reality. I need some kind of story, some kind of explanation that makes things start to make sense, right? If you're talking about humans, it's some kind of psychology. If you're talking about the world, it's some kind of science. If you're talking about the Torah, it's some kind of theology, right? And if you listen to a lot of drushes that don't add up to you, you could say maybe all the words, but doesn't make sense. It means you don't understand it, right? It didn't cohere into like some kind of story. It's a bunch of, you could say over the Torahs, but you don't understand it. And then I think there's very rare to find people that have ever understood two things. You know what I'm saying? Because if you want to know, is the Shittas HaChasidus the best Shitta? Or the Shittas what's the other Shitta? There isn't another Shitta. The Shittas Rambamist Shitta, a better Shitta, okay? Turns out I don't know anyone actually that actually can understand both of those Shittas. Maybe two people, very few people. For the most part, some people could read both books, but he doesn't understand it. He doesn't know how to think from the standpoint of that way of life, from that way of thinking. So he doesn't understand the two Shittas. He can't even compare them. He could say, well, this is how I understand it, and from this perspective, the other one doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't, because you think of things in these terms, in this language, in these words. How do we get into this whole side note? I was just saying that the proud people have, for the most part, is that they just don't understand. It's not that you don't disagree. It's not to disagree, you need to really understand two things, and then compare both of them and say, okay, this has pros and cons, this matches with this reality, that reality, and it turns out that this one is bad. But the most people just don't understand. And to get people to understand something different than what they thought is almost impossible. You'll notice that the only people that actually understand, this is very sad fact for my Ogidete friends, sad news, you never understand things by arguing with them. Nobody ever understood a book by opening it and learning it in the way that Litvish people are taught to learn to read books. Did you know that? It's masculine. sad news. If you go to that sheet, the people that understand, or at least have some kind of grasp of what the meaning is, right? How this helps you understand something, are the people that listen. They don't know, they're not very sophisticated usually, but they understand it. Interesting fact. And of course, if they would be less mystic or they would have more sophistication, they would understand it, even able to understand it even better. But even the sophisticated people understand it. They understand it from a certain position that they were able to listen once, at least once. Sometimes a guy, when he was a bucher, he was more mystics, so he listened, then the rest of his life is just adding sophistications. But that's just how things work. If you disagree with me, then we should stop. That is my observation. This is why the people that actually feel like they know something are very stuck. They're really struggling with a problem. Which is, how do you teach anyone anything? It's very easy to teach, like I said, literature way of learning. Of course, they learn a lot of new things, but they don't learn new thoughts ever. Because you have like one thought that they somehow get into your head from 9th grade until 12th grade, somewhere in between. They get one thought into your head, and that's the only thing you believe for the rest of your life. The only thing you know, the only thing you understand. You just interpret a lot of things from the perspective of that kind of, like some kind of framework for analyzing texts, basically, or for conceptual analysis. But that's all you know. You just don't know anything else. And you know that from in a pshita, right? Groise Litva, Groise Choykev said is the system of how he thinks. He was just makabel b'em in a pshita, like a little baby. I never thought, well, is this b'chlal? Can't even think of that, because that's, right? Because he's thinking with that, you can't think that, right? Like it's very hard for fish to think outside of water, right? It's like you can't see without your eyes, right? But kids, this is the problem. Zurich in Gurdel, just Kasha Dal Shem Tov, I'm asking you a much basic person. How do you teach anything to anyone? Anything real? Anything worth learning? Or how do we learn anything, right? Let's say I want to learn a new thing. How do I do it? Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe learning is dangerous and it should be restricted to the elite, like you said. But the baya. So this baya, some people who notice this baya, and they have a solution. Solution is called, we're just discussing a certain solution. No. First, we're going to talk about a different solution. What is the solution that the Chassidish rabbis have to this problem? Then we'll talk about Sakari's solution to the problem. What were the Chassidish rabbis' solution to the problem? No.
Teaching. Having close people, close students.
What was your solution before when you said the people that are going to come, they're not going to understand? What was the solution? Should have more Kabbalah Sal, huh? Chassidish solution to this problem is called, or not only Chassidish, by the way, just saying this because you know that. It's called Eminence Tzadikim, right? Bittul to the Rebbe. If the Rebbe says something, he knows more than you. Like I already told you, Rebbe Nussen's Torah, right? I'm going to start making a list of Bertlich that you should remember also. Rebbe Nussen from Breslov said, why was he a better Talmud than all the other Talmidim? Because everyone came to the Rebbe and they said, I know some things, the Rebbe knows some more things, now I know 11 things. But I had a different mahalach. I came to my Rebbe, I said, I don't know nothing. The Rebbe says one thing, I know one thing. If he says two things, I know two things.
So basically, Hachna is a good thing.
It's a solution to this problem, absolutely.
No, so was the
Great, there you go. It's a solution. I got you somewhere now, right? Achno, or in Chassidish language, bittul, and so on, is a solution to this problem. It's only interesting, in the way I'm saying, it's only interesting if you think that the Rebbe knows something and you need a way, or maybe the Rebbe needs a way to communicate across this barrier of people that think that they don't realize that they're missing anything, right? And it's very hard to teach. Yeah, bittul is the solution. That's where I said that we have to think of this as a good solution. Is it a good solution?
It's a limited good solution. It doesn't let you compare alternatives well. Right.
Okay, it could
Depending
be
who the Rebbe is.
maybe somehow. And some people try, and that's a different problem.
Depending who the Rebbe is.
If it's a bad Rebbe, I'm not talking again. Of course, these everything can be
No.
misused.
This is a Minas Chachomim thing. If he's like a Chacham, in other words,
100%. That's not. But that's a side problem. That's like a clip of the middle, right? It's like saying curiosity is good. If you're curious and you're going to learn how to kill people, that's side. Of course, if it's misused, if something that's the problem that everyone has. But I'm not even bothered by this problem. I'm not bothered because of course there's also a circle in that, right? Because how do you know that the guy knows anything if you don't know anything, right? How do you decide what to be brutal to? Very basic circular problem, right? All the Handige Rebbes are stuck in this problem. Because they all start from bittul, but that's very nice. After you, for some reason, somehow know that the guy knows something, then you say, how I'm going to learn it, how I'm going to understand it, okay, I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to have a certain amount of listening or but if you don't know, if the whole thing starts, I think that he knows something because the guy doesn't lie, then the master had to verstehen, right? Or then there could be, of course, people that are just misusing the idea because they're stam. They just want you to be meshibet to them for no reason. So these are side problems. Let's assume that we already not talk about that problem. Let's assume that somehow we know that this person knows something. It's a good question, how? Or let's talk about from the perspective of the person that knows already. It's easier, right? He knows that he knows something. How does he know? From himself. But he knows that it's very hard to teach the people. So what is he going to tell them? He's going to tell them, listen, I've studied this for 70 years. And what I'm going to do to you is, I'm going to tell you, please listen to me. Because I know what I'm talking about. That's the solution. And please don't ask kashas, because those are good kashas, but they're not kasha against what I'm saying. Just believe me for a few days or a few years. That's because that's the only way you're going to grasp anything. And just to be clear, this works, for example, for math teachers, it works, right? And all the system of knowledge that they teach in so-called secular studies and so on, this system works. When you start a math course or any other course, you don't start with asking for proofs that what the teacher is saying is true. You start by learning things even like in a one-on-one level, with a lot of simplifications and falsehoods, basically. But you understand, this is how we're going to learn. Slowly, we'll get to a level where I actually compare, to actually start understanding. Everyone starts with just listening to what other people say, and we sort of assume that there's some kind of system that makes sure that the professor doesn't lie to you, which is also a kasha. It could also break down, it could also be misused.
And at what point do you say, okay, bye-bye now? Meaning, at what point do you realize
again, traditionally there's an answer to this, like you get smicha from the Rebbe, that now you could think by yourself. Right? Like if you get a PhD, that gives you a right to ask kashas. To ask kashas not betor typish, betor someone that's...
No, if I to close up and say, I'll never come back to this guy because he really doesn't have a holistic view on this world and he doesn't have this verkaufen be'etzim, hat gesagt, jeder, aber be'etzim hat nicht gesagt.
Who?
Saying, this guy, right, out the minister called me, I came in for 2, 3 years, whatever, 5, 6, whatever, like what's the cutoff point where he says...
I told you, that's a side, you're talking about the side problem. I'm saying, let's assume this is a side problem. In other words, it's a practical problem. How do you know that there's a person that's worth listening to? It's a practical problem.
No, but I already decided to listen.
Okay, so you could say I've tested them for 5 years, and it depends how much time you have in your life for such tests and stuff. But yeah, so that would be a practical answer to that kind of problem, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
For the practical problems, there's practical answers. They're not the worst answers. I think that there's bigger problems than this now.
Meaning, what was I do sitzen and waste my 5 years? Maybe I should go seek another teacher that talks to me.
So the things like this, I can answer this question.
Yeah.
The thing is like this. Assuming, if you know anything about how learning works, then you're going to need to learn the same thing, or same teacher, or in the same system, or in the same school in some sense, for, make up a number, 5 years, okay? There isn't any way to do it otherwise. the Litvish way just doesn't work. Nobody ever ends up learning anything. Right? If there's something to be learned, again, if there's nothing to be learned, it's no problem. If there's something to be learned, then the option of let me just sit here and go every week to a different teacher. For example, if you say, why do I waste my time? I'm going to have to spend 5 years. Well, okay, what's your option? You go for 1 week to each teacher. Problem is, you're never going to learn anything. Even assuming that one of those teachers, or 1% of them is the good one, knows something, from doing this shit, you're never going to find him. You're never going to learn anything. Because even from the true teacher, the first week you don't learn anything. Or the first year, or right?
Even if he's an amazing teacher?
Yeah, even, obviously. Maybe he's going to be better at selling. There's a different style. Maybe he's going to be better at courting you, at selling you. Say that. But if you want to learn actually something, I want to learn a Masechta. Right? Take the most simple example. It takes a year to learn a Masechta. Right? You're going to say, well, maybe this person doesn't know the Masechta, so I'm going to leave after the first blot. Okay, you're never going to finish the Masechta. You're going to start the first blot every time again. Just not going to add up.
Yeah, but who's explaining that first block the best? That's the guy I want to go to.
Maybe. So again, we're in practical land.
Because it's a mushal. The ummah is a mushal. Because
you're going to have some way of discerning before you know anything, which is actually a real problem. If you think about it, it's not guaranteed to give you good results. Because obviously there's people that are very good at selling themselves and very bad at anything beyond that. And there are people that are actually good at the thing beyond that and bad at selling themselves. Or bad at presenting things in a way that everyone in the first year is going to understand. Those are teretz. You also can get the teretz for the problem. If you're going to say, I need it to be understood to me the first day, firstly, almost by definition, you're trying to say, I don't want to learn anything, right? And it's like, even let's say, okay, you know something, maybe there's levels of everything, there could be a simpler level that you could learn and so on. Maybe think they're one that actually knows is not good at that. So you have baya. And one solution, which I know many people actually end up doing, which is like just jumping around forever, is like dating forever and never marrying anyone. Right? You have to date someone before you marry them, otherwise you shouldn't. Otherwise you're acting very stupidly. But also, you're never going to get married if you only do that. If you want that stage to solve all your problems. At some stage, you're going to have to commit to someone and get married. And maybe you'll find out after a few years that it was the wrong one. But the option of just staying in the dating stage is never an option. Not a realistic option. Not an option that answers your problem at all. It's an option that's yish, right? It's an option that gives up on learning anything because who knows? You know, maybe it's better to marry the wrong person, so at least to learn. You'll have been married for those years. I don't know. There's some trade-off in these things, right? Some amount is the correct amount, and some amount is the wrong amount. Who knows which is the exact amount? I don't know. But these are practical questions. I think that there might be a real problem with this malach, besides for the problem of practically how do you know and how long and so on. What's the real problem?
How do you date?
I told you, those are practical problems. We could solve them. There are actual solutions. There are solutions to that problem. We could solve them. And not only, it's probably we need to find out the solutions to those problems because there's no other way to do anything. But
that once you
in the other shit, let me tell you, you're going to have that similar issue, right?
Yeah, but the real problem should be that once you do understand, then you have nowhere to learn anymore.
No,
you have nowhere to learn. Because learning is always knowing something that you didn't know before. But at one point that you know it, so then how are you learning?
Who?
Guy went, he understands the Rebbe after a year, after 5 years, 10 years, whatever the practice is.
He understands his git, but what's the problem?
Yeah, so then what's there to learn?
If you finish learning everything there's to learn, then
by this Rebbe. By this Rebbe.
No problem. So you tell the Rebbe, thank you for teaching everything you know, and I'm going to learn other things. What's the problem?
But you can't understand two things, really.
You can't?
It's very, very hard.
So
and it might be that you can't, by the way. I'm not sure how you could, really.
Okay, so now he'll be stuck. What's your problem? What should I do? Human
Can you
limitation.
understand two things?
Some people could.
No, what does it even mean?
Good question. But I don't have a solution for you. But what should I do? And therefore what? If there's a limit, I mean...
No, therefore it's a problem. I don't know what the solution is.
It's a problem for what? It's a problem for what?
For this exercise of what we're trying to do. There's actual inherent...
It's only a problem if you have, at least in theory, something better, right? Just pointing out human limitations are not problems, right? I feel like what you want to say is that if I propose that someone should choose a teacher and follow them for 5 years, and you have to do that, your problem is that maybe there was a different teacher who has something to teach me for 6 years, and by following this one for 5 years, I'm missing out on that. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, because that's like more of a practical problem also. Hagam, it's also a real problem, but it's also a practical problem.
Meaning it's part of the same problem of how do you find the one that knows before you know.
Right.
Okay. So there's a different problem? I'm asking you. You said that there's a different problem.
No, I mentioned my problem. You said that it's not really a problem because then I'm pointing out human limitations which you can't deal really with ever. Fine. Oh, yeah. Okay, you answered that. Yeah.
I mean, one solution to the human limitation is to never commit anything. Very bad solution.
Always be dating.
Yeah, and this from a certain Riach Hazman that's basically doing that for everything.
So that's really the answer to your problem. Meaning, I just don't know. I just don't know about this Rebbe that is for 6 years. It's fine. So what should I do? I should be dead. Right? That's really the answer also. It's a human limitation. Ich weiß nicht wegen der Rebbe was kemach auslernen for 7 years. Yeah, I was only here by a Rebbe that's 5 years. This is what I like, you know.
Okay, I actually have a solution. It's a stickle solution. Okay? I have a solution.
Okay.
Okay, so Koydem, I want to say a different problem. I have a better problem than this, okay? I have more serious problems than you people have. You people have very basic problems, which is maybe my Rebbe is faking at me. Maybe he's tricking me.
No, I don't think that. I mean, my Rebbe's wrong.
Maybe he's wrong. That's a very simple problem. I'm not saying it's not a real problem, because there's so many fakers around. But I'm trying to get at the actual idea itself. Even if it wouldn't be a fake Rebbe, even if you talk about Moshe Rabbeinu or something. I still think...
Am I limited by my Rebbe? Meaning...
That's what I'm saying telling him. You're limited by what you can understand. Thank you very much. Again, the solution to being limited by anything you're going to do is not to do
Not just limited by what I understand, I'm limited by what I'm taught.
Yes, true, but at least you're going to understand what you're taught, and the other option is not be taught anything.
The question is also if I can find out for myself if what my Rebbe is saying is true.
1 second. If you can find out for yourself, that's another way.
Not find out for myself, but once I know it, think about it and see if
I said that. But those will again be small.
So I might not even be able to think about it correctly.
Maybe it'll give you a different way to think with, right? Which is going to force you to think in his way. Right. But that's again in the basic sense. It's like if you marry one woman, you will be limited to her. She might be bad, or she's definitely limiting. Even the best one is limiting because she's not everyone else. There isn't anyone that has all the malice at once, I think. Aside from my wife. Then, Zemayesh, what can I do? I think there's a different problem. I'll tell you a different problem that I have, okay? Different problem, which I think that's not only a problem, but can actually help us find a better way to do this. I hold that all the people that talk about Minas Chachamim have the least of Minas Chachamim.
Why do I have to have the Minna and the Chacham in order to...
They agree with it.
You have to teach a Minas Chachamim without the Chacham and without them.
Maybe. Well, why do I think this? Because I see all the people that talk about Minas Chachamim. We just present the Minas Chachamim, another new word for the same.
So only believe in my 5 Chachamim, by the way.
Right, but we even more deep. We just present the Minas Chachamim as a solution to a very basic human problem, like a paradox, the Mino's paradox, whatever, a basic human problem, which is how you learn anything. Solution is that you accept what someone smarter than you or better than you tells you. So even though you don't know, there's some way of getting it. Okay, that's the solution. Now, in other words, this is like, if you want to visualize it, some kind of magic dissolver that dissolves the basic barrier that there is between people and learning. Right? People are closed, conceptually closed, but not closed because not only emotionally, also emotionally and psychologically, but also like conceptually, you're closed. Your mind is closed. It cannot receive something new, something better. And I have a way of opening it. I have a key, or maybe not a key. I think a dissolving solution is a better metaphor. That dissolves your barriers. It's called believing tzaddik. However, it's tzaddik. And it's definitely a key that works. If provided that the tzaddik is actually worth his salt. Small problem, right? Now, meeting many of these people, it seems to me that they have not actually dissolved their barriers. They're not actually open in any sense. Not only they're not open to other people besides the Rebbe, you could say, okay, the Rebbe told me he's the one that knows everything and nobody else should be listened to. No, maybe. I also think that it's still a steal. Because we're talking about some midden in your nefesh, right? We're talking about some kind of behavior, some kind of character that you were supposed to have gotten from this, right? And you actually didn't become a more receiving person. Even relative to your Rebbe, you didn't become more receiving. Because what actually happens with most people talk about it, really don't even read it in my way. Most people would actually read how they read it. Something like, I believe that the Rebbe is right. Very different. Believing that the Rebbe is right and being able to listen to him are two different things. Makes sense? Another way, a simple way of seeing this, like I said, maybe it's not entirely a proof, but a simple way of seeing this is that I think that someone who actually has a minute of Mitzchom should listen to me, not only to his Rebbe. So I'm a smart guy, because I'm saying something. And not only to his Rebbe, if you're a Yid, you have Mitzchom, which means in some sense you should have a minute, everyone that learns Torah, or something. And not only don't they do that, but they don't even have the ability to do that. You just don't have this like chisha shmiyah. They don't have a sense of listening to anyone. No such thing as listening. Because the way they understood their Mitzchom was not in the sense of, I have a way of breaking down my opposition to learning anything. But I know a guy that already knows anything and therefore I don't have to learn anything. Have the difference. Very big difference. One is bittul hayesh, and one is transference of your yesh to someone else. Which makes a lot of sense, since most people know that they're not the smartest, and since they want to feel like they know everything, but there's a way of knowing by proxy. The Rebbe knows everything, and whatever he says, I just repeat the words he said, and really try to understand them. Because then I would actually have to open my mind up and my heart up. And then I would become a person with an open heart, and I would probably, just by doing that, listen to other people, right? Just like someone who loves one woman in general will be better at loving other women too. Of course, we have this enough and problems like that, but the kind of, right?
The possibility.
It's possible. If her wife, whatever, people have problems, they're committed, whatever. But in the actual, because that you became this kind of person, if you never loved anyone that you don't know how to love, you have a problem. You're missing some kind of faculty. But if you did love someone, okay, then you're committed to her, so you don't love any. You have a problem. And you have an ison, right? In the same way, someone that had ever one Rebbe should make him easier to have other Rebbes. It's really fascinating that most people who have one Rebbe makes it harder for them to have any other Rebbes or to listen to anyone. Because most people who claim to have a Rebbe don't actually have a Rebbe. They have someone who does their thinking does their knowing for them. And they just have to be part of his knowing. They don't even have to learn anything from the Rebbe. These are two versions of Minas Chachamim. Very, very different versions, which end up being totally different things. And this is why most of in some sense, it's better. I mean better. At least that guy's not against nine, right? At least, hoping. You have to have like mamish. If you really if you think that's the general solution, then you have to like mamish believe that Hashem makes care that people never should have bad rebbes, which he obviously doesn't. But but that's actually what many people believe because they want to believe this. But it's assuming that the guy is a good Rebbe, then it's actually not. I don't know if it's worse than the other option, which is just to think that you know everything yourself, which you obviously don't, and being even more wrong. At least you pretend to know by proxy, so you at least have some connection or some hope of being connected with the reality.
You mean the very superficial chus that is best of the yeshiva?
Yeah, for sure. If his Rebbe is a good Rebbe, 100%.
No, yeah.
For sure. If he has a real Rebbe, whoever that is. Because at least he's not that Meshiga. And it's told Farik to think that he's 17 years old and he knows everything. You gotta be crazy to think that. I mean, everyone that's 17 thinks that, but at least if you have this like kind of thing, at least like have the ability to be somewhat closer to like knowing that it's not really that way and you should learn something. But actually what most people use the Rebbe is for the opposite, for closing themselves up instead of for opening themselves up. Which is why it's not a good midah. In other words, even if we are to, and this is something that I do believe in, even if we are to talk about the midah of bittul or the midah of being receptive as necessary to learning, when it is, obviously is, there's no other way. Saying I'm going to test everything is not actually a solution. Because I'm going to test anything, I'm never going to listen to you. After I listen to you, I can test it. But if you realize that means that I'm going to listen to you even better. Right? Instead of saying I'm not going to listen to you, I'm just going to test it myself. It means I'm going to listen to you so well to realize exactly what you're saying. And then I'll see if it adds up, if it doesn't, right? You need to listen even better to do that, not worse. Right? Right? We'll get to this in a second. But so you need to have this midah, this thing of listening. But it should not be you only listen to this mar to the Rebbe. I think that's a bad midah. Because that's another way of saying close up. It should be, like it says in the Mishnah, you have to be learned mekoludah. That's Medrash Chachma, Limit Mikolodah. And that's actually a very rare talent, very rare ability. I call this talent, a very rare capacity. It's very rare to find people that actually know how to learn from someone else. Many people pretend to have learned from one person, or like one Rebbe, or if you're Yid, like from the Torah, which is again another version of one Rebbe, right? But actually, very few people even do it for that. Like a little bit that works, but actually to be able to learn from another person is something that it's rare to find a person that's able to do that. I think I know like 2 people that are able to do it. And actually both very smart people, very critical people. But they just have the ability to actually listen to what someone tells them. An amazing thing. And then he can ask you the correct questions. Like I have a lot of arguments with people. And it's amazing how nobody even asks me the correct questions. Meaning to say, if I come in somewhere and say something different than what people are used to thinking in that group or something, and people will say, no, it can't be, blah, 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 blah. Very nice. Thank you. I always tell them, thank you very much. I know that you think differently. That's why I told you this, right? You're just repeating what you've done until now. That's not helping anyone. Of course, we know that. We both know that already. I actually know there's actually questions of what I'm saying. And since I've thought about it, usually I actually know what the real pircha is. Like, it's a pircha, nachashana, but there's in other words, you would make progress by doing it. If you would actually listen to what I'm saying, then you would say like, but what do you do with that? Or, but there's an internal contradiction in this. Okay, now you've listened to me, you've helped me, right? Maybe you showed me I'm wrong, maybe you showed me where I need to fix up my theory, maybe, right? But almost like 90% of the time, people don't even do that. But they're so bad at listening. So this is one solution. Very simple solution. I think that makes sense. But this solution doesn't require anyone to pretend they're a Rebbe. This is the amazing thing with this. But pretending you're a Rebbe and you know something that the other person doesn't know is a very stupid thing. And it's also not true, but also, I mean, even in the sense that it is true, it's not very useful because all you could do is have the person know what you know by proxy, which is almost useless because it still doesn't know anything. Right? Like I said, maybe it's better than the other option, but it's not really what we're trying. If we're trying to really help people, to really make people know something, it's not a solution at all. Right? Makes sense? That's the real problem. Now, I've finally got to the real problem with this Shitta Vachno. The real problem with Shitta Vachno is that you don't know anything at the end of that whole process. You have to if we change the word Achno to the word openness or to the word being able to listen to someone else, then it's almost the opposite of Achnon and the popular understanding, right? Because the popular people that talk about Achnon don't actually listen. Just either you believe or you disbelieve, but you're not listening. But if you have this, then you're also put it from the whole like pretense of someone that knows something and tells it to other people that don't know it. Because all the teacher in that kind of world would demand is that, look, I've thought, even this maybe is too much, but like I've thought about this, or maybe let's think about it with you, and maybe I could get you a few steps further than what you did by yourself. That's all. And maybe I could get you 1,000 steps further, but anyway, it's not going to get you anyways. More than one step at a time. So the 1,000 steps are not really relevant.
And this is also why it's important as a teacher not to like spoon feed.
Yes, spoon feed, not to overwhelm. Opposite. Only spoon feed. I don't know what you mean by the word spoon feed.
Spoon feed is like literally jede Kleinigkeit that he has a problem with. Like he that he's not understanding the Rebbe instead of thinking exactly what the Rebbe is saying and rethinking. Right? That's really the point of training the Talmud to do, right? Is what do you mean to think to get to think?
Meaning the Rebbe shouldn't dilute what he's saying to meet the Talmud's existing conceptual categories. He should be saying enough to broaden it. Yeah, I think that's. I don't need an Rebbe to tell me green is green and red is red. I need an Rebbe to tell me red is not always red and green is not always green in a way where I can. It fits the box, but enough that it pushes the borders, right?
And then he starts thinking. Isn't that
that's
what
the skill?
The goal
that's I think a skill of teaching, no?
Think?
Yeah, if he's spoon feeding, then he's not teaching anything. He's just saying things. If he's teaching anything, it should be something you don't already know.
No, because the Rebbe. Well, no. The Rebbe could break it down if he understands it, right? This Rebbe.
If you could break it down to be ABCs, but still broaden the way you think about something, there's nothing better. The problem is that in order for me to expand my existing scope, it has to be enough that it fills the box and pushes out, right? If you're just, you could come up to me and say, I want to teach you something. 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, I'm listening. 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, I'm listening. At some point, you have to tell me 3 + 3 = 5, and I have to be like, what? Right? You have to say something I don't know in order so that I can take a step back, dilute myself, and then try to understand it. Otherwise, it's not teaching. It's just saying things. You can say all kinds of things. No?
3 + 3 = 5 threw me off.
No, meaning because eventually you hit something where you're like, hey, I don't follow that progression. I can't understand this thing. Let me...
No, but can't that be understood?
Either I didn't understand 1 + 1 = 2 and 2 + 2 = 4 properly, or there's a new way of thinking where 3 + 3 does = 5 in that existing scheme, right? There's two different ways, at least, that particular example could be approached, right? Where I say, the reason why 3 + 3 = 5 seems absurd to me is because I didn't understand what 1 + 1 = 2 meant and 2 + 2 = 4, right? Or I could say, well, it's really the same thing, right? I mean, if something went wrong in my initial understanding, that I didn't arrive at the same conclusion as you. Now I have to go back and adjust my parameters from the outside and say, hey, what did I misunderstand about the first thing we said? Or there's actually something new involved in 3 + 3 = 5. Maybe I thought it was a plus and it was a multiplication sign, or it was a division sign, which has a different meaning, right? But if you could simplify why 3 + 3 = 5 and simplify that expansion as best as possible, or simplify how to change my initial understanding as best as possible, that's ideal. I think.
Right, but I think that you're still talking. What you're discussing is questions of strategy.
Yeah, I'm not
both of these things, because what I'm talking about is a more general thing, a more broader thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is just in regards to the question of whether or not something can be maximally simplified. It should be maximally simplified, but simplified to the point where it has no content. It's not simplification. Yeah, it's just elimination.
That's a question of strategy, like I'm saying.
Yeah,
because what I'm talking about is what kind of demands, right? Now, how the listening happens, there could be many ways. What I'm talking about is only what kind of demands the knowledge, the wisdom, makes of its students. Okay? you could say the teacher of his students. So I want to say wisdom. Right? One kind of demand is you need to accept what I am saying. That's standard version of Menes Chachamim. And another version is just please listen to me. The first version says you must accept what I'm saying because I know better than you, because I'm better than you, and that's why it only applies to a teacher. It doesn't apply horizontally between friends, things like that. And the version that says please listen to me is an equalizing one, right? It doesn't need to claim that I know anything better than you. It only says I'm talking with you as a human being. Me and you are both thinking. Listen to me.
Can two exist at the same time? Can in other words, that would take care of the other problem.
Which other problem?
You had a problem that where does it start from? Right?
Yeah.
So meaning if we know that this guy is talking very smart, meaning he has this ability to say, accept what I'm saying because I'm smarter than you, but I'm also going to tell you, please listen to me while I'm telling you to accept. Meaning,
we're still going to have the tactical problems that you discussed before, which means maybe I shouldn't listen to you. Like for example, by the way, and for this we might have an easier answer because we could find something external to the discussion itself. Right? Instead of saying the Rebbe asks you to believe him, you should ask you to listen to him. We're still ending up with the question: who is it worth listening to? I'm not listening. Just let me explain why this is clear. Because listening, when I say listening, that's why I said what you said and said before. This question of strategy. Listening can take many forms. One way of listening is right away ask me, does it make sense? Right away follow my logic. Listening could also mean I'm just going to give you a story that takes 2 years to tell and listen to the whole thing and then maybe don't ask questions until it because you're going to lose the thread. That's also a kind of listening. And of course, then we end up with the same problem. Is it worth listening to you? And now we're going to have the same kind of tactical problems. Find out who it's worth listening to. But, well, at least we solved the other problem. But also, there might be a solution to this. Because who isn't it worth listening to? Having replaced the question of who should I believe with who should I listen to, well, I can at least tell you easily who you shouldn't listen to. Which is
the guy that says accept me.
A bad person.
Without no, for real. Meaning the guy that's not masking to tell you, please listen to me.
Well, maybe you should listen to him. It's hard to listen to him because it doesn't really say things that can be listened to. But maybe you should listen to him. Not necessarily a proof that there's something wrong. Like there's not something necessarily wrong. Maybe that guy has a different strategy. He thinks that the best way to teach is to say accept what I say, and it still might be productive to listen, fruitful to listen.
So then why wouldn't he just want to just tell you to listen? In other words,
he didn't come to my class where they taught to do this. He went to a different school where they taught that the teachers has to tell the people, not make them listen.
No, what I'm saying is that their problem, this all the way in the beginning of the Shi, right? You said this guy that tells you, Havachno, right? In other words, he cannot tell you, please listen to me, because he's not able to. That's what I'm trying to say.
But of course we have the same problem. When you're stupid, you don't really have the tools to evaluate who to listen to, right? We still have the same problem. It's that guy, I mean, maybe even the person that I was referring to, right? Maybe for me, he could have done a different strategy. Maybe he would have been smarter, and obviously the smarter people manage to do it in a different way. But probably for most other people, he was right. So he for sure knows more than the 13-year-old kids that he was teaching. And they should probably listen to him instead of just thinking for themselves, which would be totally useless. Talking about Pshat and Tosfos, right? I'm not talking about think for yourself and which pizza you like, man. They really have no clue. And they probably can't even have a clue. Maybe I could, but maybe they can't. So what should he do? It could be that he's doing a useless strategy, but actually works for many people. Mm-hmm. Again, I can tell you that there's better ideas, but maybe he's not a very good teacher, maybe he's not very smart and all these things. But I think that what Shmuley says is a better answer, at least the easier answer. I'm not saying it covers everything, but at least it gives us something outside the discussion to hang on, which is because the people not worth listening to at all are who? Evil people, but specifically what kind of evil? How do we know he's evil, right? Maybe he has crazy wisdom. So, easier answer. More specifically, which kind of evil people?
It's not good with this.
Well, which Medrash? Who shouldn't I listen to?
People with cats.
Okay, all right. People with Atzvis. Well,
Or a guy who tells you shouldn't listen to anybody else.
that was his first proposal,
what I
but I'm not
That's what I meant to
happy
say.
with that. Yeah, I know, but that's not happy. Well, I can tell you a very easy answer. People not speaking in good faith. What about that? People not honest. People who don't say what they mean.
How do you know that?
It's at least it's a good question how I know, but it's at least not the same. It's not the same thing as people who are wrong, right? People can be right and not be honest, and can be wrong and be honest. These are two different things, right? We're trying to let's try to reframe our problem. We're trying to find a way of differentiating who to listen to from who is right, right? Because knowing who is right, I need to already be by the conclusion, but I'm still by the beginning, right? So now, if the whole demand is follow who's right, then I'm stuck in this loop. But if the demand is not follow who's right, the demand is listen to people, that's all. Then I can tell you something that's not part of the same loop. Maybe I'll have another question, how I know. I'm not saying it's easier to know. I'm just saying it's not part of the same literal question that we're trying to find out. Because someone who is a liar and who is wrong are two different questions. Right? Sometimes I'm having a negotiation with a person. I'll give you an example that you shouldn't agree with, hopefully. Sometimes I'm having a negotiation with a person and I've had this happen many times, and I know people that are training in Shiva arguing get stuck in this problem very often. So two people are having it in Torah, and one of the student, who of course is wrong because he's on the other side as me, comes and says, Chabatana, blah 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 blah. And you try to answer his Tana. You should never make that mistake. Unless you're talking to a third party who is an arbitrator, and then the Dayan or the Beis or the court, you should find a Tana that will talk to the court, not that will answer his question. Because he's not asking you a question, right? When I'm in court with someone, right? Questions if I owe you money or you owe me money, right? And this guy has Tanas, Rayas, Svuris. There's nothing good. My good philosopher, I answer kashas, right? I'd be a very stupid guy, not a good philosopher, would answer that guy's Svuris. What I have to do is figure out how to convince the judge that's true. But I don't have to answer his cash. Just to be clear, doesn't think that I owe him money because he has cash, right? He thinks so because he's on the other side of the story. And I think so because I'm this side, right? Of course, if I'm maybe taka wrong, I should try to find out if I'm wrong. I'm not saying I'm talking about that. But this conversation with that person is not in good faith, right? If it's being happening in a good court, then there's some process that's supposed to have an adversarial process, right? It's supposed to have two people lying to each other, and the judge is supposed to be able to find out the truth from two people lying to them. I have no idea how it's supposed to work. But anyway, it seems to be very weird, right? How is the guy supposed to figure out? Two guys are supposed to lie. They're both lawyers. They each find the best lies. And the judge is supposed to decide who has the best lies. How is that supposed to work? Anyway, that's a logical problem with the court process. But, in any case, I for sure shouldn't make the mistake of answering that guy. And I've seen many people make that mistake. And it never helps. Never. Because we're right? If the guy is just trying to find ways to win, so you should be finding ways to win. You shouldn't be answering his questions, right? Because he's not arguing in good faith, right? This is Socrates said that the difference between philosophy and court is that in court, when court is the same, like when we're talking the court of public opinion, we're doing the kind of court arguments, right? We're never actually talking to that person. Didn't they have a class? Oh, in Berpark I did this class. You're never actually talking to that person, right? Right? Because if you watch debates on YouTube, the amazing thing is that nobody ever debates anything in those debates. You notice? What are they doing? Because none of them are actually, when I meet, right, what I mean nobody debates is that there's no option of anyone winning, right? Which means that the stakes are fake, right? Because when these two chevre come and meet, their job is really to convince the audience, both of them, right? Which means they're not actually listening to each other. Of course they're listening in the sense of he's running his algorithm. What did the guy say? What can I come back? How can I have a good clip to come back and so on? But he's not actually, because if he would be answering, then he would be really scared of making this public debate. Maybe he's going to come out and say, at the end of the debate, and say, yeah, you're wrong and I'm right, or I'm right and you're wrong. Not the opposite, you're wrong. Right? Which is, which means that they're not listening to each other. In the mahalach of listening to each other, you could be wrong. You see, the problem that is not that you're wrong. Since you're wrong because you're having a mistake, right? Not because you want to win. If you just want to win, which means really you don't even want to convince, you're not going to convince me, right? Because if you're going to want to convince me, I'm going to talk to you and we'll together find out that we're getting stuck somewhere, which is how discussion is supposed to lead us to truth, right? How learning is ever supposed to work. If one tzaddik says like this, the other Amoida answers him that, from between them, somehow the truth is supposed to come out. That's fine. And then you understand? So you have to listen to each other, not because he's right. Maybe even if he's wrong, it's worth listening to him. The only person it's not worth listening to is the person who will continue speaking even when he's wrong. Because he's not listening to you. Makes sense. This is why listening doesn't require the person to be right at all. It only requires him to be participating in the same game as me. It only requires him to be sincere. In other words, it only requires him to be truth-seeking, not knowing the truth. And then we're really both equal around the truth, right?
But then anyone can be a Rebbe.
Absolutely. Everyone can be and should be. We call them Malam Skalti, that's what we're talking about, right? Everyone should be your Rebbe. Of course.
No, the guy doesn't even have to be knowing anything. That's
true.
He only has to be seeking.
It's true. But you have to actually follow. Most people have no patience to follow conversations. If you ever notice that conversations happen, normal people don't have real conversations, right?
Can you demonstrate a normal one and a not normal one?
Yeah, normal one. Normal one goes something like, no. Gosh, my examples are going to be political, that's the problem. But
who cares?
Who cares? I care. Ich bin achuzet von Avruam and he was achuzet von Yitzchok. Okay, a normal conversation when we're nice people, not when we're fighting. That's not malicious. When we're nice people, we say, you know that by Avruam Chassidim they hold that you have to be Mekabel Shabbos 20 minutes before the Lechtzim. Okay, and the other guy says, yeah, you know, by us we hold that should be 35 minutes, but the Krecht Rebbe gesagt das 35 is Matri Lamed Haim. And then another guy says, yeah, interesting, but and also and so on. Okay, that's how normal people talk. Sometimes even fighting, like, how do you mean? But our Rebbe said differently. And what do you mean? There's the Rashben, Sechtes Gitten, Nachmim Zayin, Zuktas, blah blah blah, and so on. Okay, but none of these people are convinced each other. There's no option of anyone ever changing his mind. Changing his mind is a bad example. There's no option of anyone learning anything. Right? A real conversation would be like this. We hold that you should Mekabel Shabbos 20 minutes earlier. And then, if the other person would be listening, he would say, okay, but isn't that a problem? Because 20 minutes is only a third of an hour. And that means that since, my arguments are not making any sense, but since a third is shlish, it says that hidden it's a shlish melegaf, so it has to be, or whatever. And then the other guy would go, wait, yeah, problem. Sounds like you're right. But let's actually figure out if shlish means also a third of an hour, maybe just talk about money only. Then we made some progress in this conversation, right? But normal people don't have these kind of conversations. Because they don't listen to each other. Now, are there people that it's worth listening to, like I said before, for a more extended time than others? Yeah, for sure. Those are the people we call teachers. But they're really just people much better at having conversations. And of course, if the teacher is wrong, then he would have figured out. By the way, if a teacher is good at this, then he would find out very quickly the things he's wrong about. Because he's not trying to sell a theory, trying to get closer to the truth. Of course, he wants you also to be close to the truth. And if you think something, he's going to tell it to you. And if you notice incoherence in it, and he will notice it even just by saying it, or sometimes there's someone else listening, then it will be better. It will get better every time. What's the problem?
All you need is good faith. Is being an honest to what you're doing, teacher.
Yes, an ability to listen. Now, I don't think that faith in the simple sense doesn't have a room. In other words, let's say someone is already 500 steps ahead of you, which really just theoretically means they already played this game a lot more levels, and he says something that's totally out of past bounds for you. But since you trust the person as a person that actually could lead you through those 500 steps, even if it didn't tell them to you, it's like, okay. Although that's a way of people to teach sometimes that way.
There's a reason to stay.
You could say, I don't know if it takes a very long time to teach in the correct place. Well, I'm telling you to do this, meanwhile you believe me. Say that. And then you can't really answer that. That just means you can't really do anything with that. But that won't be real learning. It's like temporary.
So ideally, the Rebbe-Talmud relationship should be like one level more. Meaning the guy that's 500 levels ahead, is really automatically not really doing it in good faith because Favos Tataris. Meaning, what?
There can be reasons for that.
Why? He's supposed to be now going to level 501.
Because
why is he going back to 1 for this guy? Let this guy go to the guy at level 2.
Why? He's talking to you. He cares about you. Why would probably only care about himself?
But that's not me. What do you mean? He has to think about it also.
Also, why to talk with people?
Why?
Why not?
I'm asking you, really, sincerely, why? Why does he have to worry about you? You tell me I'm level 1, I'm level 500.
Because, the answer is because he's not a Rush. He wants to share what he's achieved with others. Could say, this is just a
with others, of course, but others that are ready to go from 500 to 501.
With all the other people.
They should go to level 2, that's what I'm trying to say. Ideally, the Eitzim, what?
Maybe they should.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Tactics.
Yeah, I'm asking practically, in an ideal way of doing this, that's how it should be done. Yes or no?
I don't know what is ideal. I have no idea. I mean, of course, in the real sense, most people do you know there's a book from one of the early Chassidim that are having like a debate. There's all debates about this. Most people don't actually need
Rabbi?
Most people don't actually need the biggest chacham to be their Rabbi because they don't even know the basic stuff in every science, right? You don't need Einstein to teach you physics. You don't even know Kitta Gimel physics, so maybe go to the Kitta Gimel teach when you'll get Einstein, but I don't know. But people actually like learning from Einstein for some reason, and there's good reasons and bad reasons for that. These are questions. These are small questions. They're good questions, but they're
not
minor relative to what I'm talking about.
Not in terms of when the Talmud is seeking how to do things. That's me, the Talmud, right? I'm seeking how to do things. So why am I supposed to do it?
What I was telling you is that, firstly, if you're good, if not always true, but sometimes true, or should be. I think that it's a good thing, but I'll figure out why. I think it's a good thing that the people at 500 level should always talk to the people at 0 level. That's number one. Good for both sides of the discussion. That's number one. Number two, That's all. And I'm not getting. I don't. That's one rule. Number two, I think. See what I'm doing. This. What am I doing? I'm just telling you. We could talk about it for 2 hours. Let's try to move on to something else. We kind of can make some choices. Number two, it could be also better. But maybe this is an answer to number one. It could be a better way of learning. Also, maybe it's easier because, for example, assuming that you have some capabilities, or like maybe there's other people that can help you with other levels. But if you don't have you can have some level of amina in this. But if the person tells you the level 500, and you can at least see it in some fuzzy way, then it might help you work towards that, or work out the way towards that easier than if he literally would just be a person at level 2 that's getting you to there. My image is always like there's 2 ways to climb a mountain. Okay, one way is to cut out a carving in the rock, make one step, to make another, stand on that one, make another one. That's one way of carving out a mountain. It's probably going to end up pretty messy if you do it that way. Another way is, and there's also 2 ways of doing the other way. The other way is like this. You would take a rock, you tie it to like a hook, and you throw it all the way on the top of the cliff, and then you pull yourself up from the top, right? Or another way, that's the way. One way, the other way would be for a guy on top to throw a rope down to you, right? You could see that firstly that way works. It might not work. Again, like your problem. What if your hook cuts on a very weak rock? You're gonna die. That's the story with the guy that's found the wrong whatever. And what if the guy on top is tricking you and is gonna trap you and also drown? But on the other hand, it's a much more direct way. You'll probably make much more less false turns that way because you already have sort of a straight line that goes all the way up, and it might be quicker. Instead of building all those steps, you could actually just cut off the rope. You're going to make all the steps, but in a different way. And this, I think in the same way, sometimes if someone just tells you something, in the sense of this is the result of all the steps, even if he doesn't build all the steps with you, it can be helpful. Shine.